So for those of you who are guests with us today, we are in our third week of our Kingdom Foundations series, and we've been talking about the three projects that have been part of this. So when we talk about Kingdom Foundations, it was this plan we started 2 years ago to raise funds for three specific projects, and it was a project for the church, a project for the neighborhood, and a project for the world. Now, last week we talked about Mongolia and what we've been able to do with purchasing a church building there, and the beautiful things, the challenging things that we saw through the Mongolian Christians. This week, we're going to focus on neighborhood ministries. Now, neighborhood ministries is our overarching umbrella term for the two ministries that we're going to specifically look at today, called Bridge of Hope and our Shower Ministry. Now, 2 years ago, I came to you and I said, okay, church, we're doing this project for the church, we're doing this project for the world, but when it comes to our neighborhood ministries, we're not exactly sure what we're asking you to give to. Like, we're asking you to make a commitment, but it's kind of awkward, but I don't know what I'm going to ask you to actually do yet because we're not exactly sure where God is leading us. And we felt very clearly that God was calling us to a deeper engagement with our neighborhood. We felt very clearly there were more needs in our community than there used to be, and City Life was in a stronger position with just our capacity to do some different things than what we've done before. Now, we have consistently done really great and important connections in our neighborhood, but just felt like we can do more. God's calling us to more. God has given us this priority of position on Division Avenue. He put us on Division. We are right here. We're right in this space. And he has us here for a reason. There's something more that he has for us. We have a responsibility to do more. It's a privilege to serve. We've got to do more. And so in 2023, the Kingdom Foundation vision was this. We want to meet a foundational need in our neighborhood, a ministry that is core to people's flourishing and well-being. So we said this, you made commitments, and we started giving toward it, and the board and the staff and I were saying, oh, Lord, what is it? How are you leading us? And we wrestled and wrestled for about a year. For about a year, Pastor Phil and I explored about every rabbit trail that there could possibly be. Well, we try this, we looked into that, we heard statistics about needs in the city for that, and needs in the city for this, and things either didn't line up or we just felt like the Lord wasn't leading that way, and wrestled and wrestled, saying, Lord, we know that you want something for us. What is it that you want us to do? And we had a sense all along that the way that God has moved in the past at City Life is he has kind of dropped things in our lap, and then we know, oh, actually, this is what we're supposed to do. And so we were kind of watching for that. And that was exactly what happened to us. We ended up having two ministries that have really been birthed and have been developed over the last 2 years. One is Bridge of Hope, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and the other was our shower ministry. Now, our Monday morning shower ministry has now become this whole thing, and here we are 2 years later in a whole different place. Now, both of these ministries, both Bridge of Hope and Shower, both have to do with ministry to unhoused people. Bridge of Hope specifically serves families experiencing homelessness, so like parents and children. And the Shower ministry specifically serves just everybody, just anybody who's experiencing homelessness in particular, or is just in some sort of significant need. And so these two ministries both focus on people experiencing some sort of housing crisis. Now, we know the housing crisis in Grand Rapids is a real issue. It's been a real source of struggle. And so it's been so interesting how God has opened doors to do the same topic, but in two different ways. I'm going to give you an overview to both of these ministries before we jump into today's scripture. Here's a little bit about the shower ministry. It happens Monday mornings from 10 to 12. We have our mobile shower truck from Mel Trotter that comes. How many of you saw the mobile shower truck in the parking lot on your way in to the service? Excellent, excellent. They came here just to be show and tell today. Not to do showers, but just to be show and tell so that you can. Did anybody try to take a shower today, Michael? No, nothing, no? Some kids. Okay, well, Pastor Phil was talking about maybe trying to grab a shower too, and like, no, Pastor Phil, you were supposed to do that at home before you came today. But hopefully you got to see that and see how it was, what it's like. And so Mel Trotter brings their shower here. Besides the showers, we serve a hot breakfast, and then we do a variety of other things, including give first aid medical triage, and people can sign up for housing assistance and that sort of thing. So take a minute and watch this video, and you can see a little bit about what it looks like here on Monday mornings.
Helping others and giving back.
What does serving as a part of the ceremony mean to you?
It's just awesome to serve God's people and make a difference in their lives by feeding them and caring for them.
To me is helping people out with housing and other stuff. And we talk to people here, and we help people with food and stuff, and clothes, and showers, and that's it.
All right.
It means a lot. It's an opportunity for folks to experience what it looks like to be respected, to be dignified. It provides a safe, warm, and quiet place where they can allow folks space to just close that door.
Just that I have a regular weekly place that I can come volunteer and be part of the community of both people who are serving and those who are being served. Selling events, annuals, shine on the street, and continue to see those stores throughout the week and stop by at street corners or parks when I know it's there in Central Road. It's just a really, really interesting community to be a part of, and I really appreciate seeing the folks that do.
Well, it was important for me to spend time helping others. I've been very fortunate in my life, and I'd like to give back to others. So my passion is cooking, so I come down here to help out. And it's been a life-changing experience for me. The different people that come through the line, the stories that they have are just incredible. We're here to serve Jesus, and Jesus loves everybody who comes through here. Thank you.
What does serving as a part of the ceremony team mean to you?
Well, it gives me a chance to get out of my normal routine and interact with people I often don't have a chance to interact with, and help them address some of the basic needs of life, and hopefully make it a little more easy, and interact and enjoy one another. All part of the God's drumroll. And it changed my life, my perspective on things. And I just made myself as fortunate to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So give him a hand, give him a hand. Yes. If you are a volunteer with the shower outreach, if you've done anything with them in terms of serving, would you please stand where you are? I just want to acknowledge the volunteers who are in this room. Michael works with Mel and is a key person coordinating both. And yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Pastor Phil gives leadership to this. So we started by serving 20 to 30 people on a week. We're like, this is exciting. We're serving 20 to 30 people a meal and doing all that. Today we serve between 60 and 80 people every Monday. And between that and Immigrant Connection clients that come in on Mondays, I would say on Mondays it's not a stretch to say we have 100 people coming into our building for services of various sorts on Mondays. And it is a fun place to be. If you want to be part of something fun, come to City Life on Mondays, because that's when all the action's happening. We also, here's a little bit of the menu, what they serve. We have every week they serve about 200 pieces of French toast, about 6 pounds of turkey bacon, 80 sausage patties, 4 to 5 dozen eggs, a gallon of milk, and 70 to 80 bananas. Doesn't that sound good? We provide a good meal. We provide a good meal with good food. And we also do some other things. We partner with some other organizations. We partner with In the Image from time to time. They do a pop-up clothing giveaway. We've partnered with the Secretary of State twice. They bring their mobile unit here to City Life. And so on that day, we let Immigrant Connection clients know about that ahead of time too, because many are working through some documentation things as well. And also, any City Lifer can come to any of these things, but especially on that day, we'll often communicate, hey, it's Secretary of State Day, and so if you need to renew your driver's license or do any sort of thing like that, come here, because there's not a long wait, and you can come at your convenience to a place that's easy to get to, and come and be part of that. And so we do those about quarterly. And we do different things like clothing and hygiene item drives, which we'll be talking a little bit more about in the weeks to come. Every week we also have someone from Mel Trotter who is a housing specialist who, it's a pretty simple setup. There's that picture on there of, just pulls out a laptop and gets into the program of where people need to go and helps people understand what kind of housing they can qualify for and then helps fill out those forms. And we have had people who have gone from sleeping outside or sleeping at a mission to having a place of their own. That is our prayer for everyone that we serve. And it's always so fun when people are making that transition. We celebrate that every time. So the shower ministry is meeting immediate needs of the unhoused in kind of a survival capacity. Bridge of Hope also is meeting emergency needs of an unhoused family, but with a more long-term approach. We need both. We need both the immediate short-term approach and the in-depth immediate long-term approach. Let me tell you a little bit about Bridge of Hope. Now, the way that Bridge of Hope works is this is a program that, it's actually a national program. Mel Trotter has been promoting it, and it is where a local church is set up with a family experiencing homelessness. Mel Trotter makes that arrangement, and then Mel Trotter provides a caseworker who does casework for the family who's going through that. So there's specifically the family connection, but then there's a church team of about 8 to 10 people that surrounds the family and walks with them for about a year-long process. They share relationships, social capital, a small amount of financial assistance, and the whole purpose is long-term stability. Now, when I, as a local church pastor, when I am looking at the stories and I see families who have an organization that comes in and says, all right, we're going to cover your rent for 3 to 6 months or whatever, versus Bridge of Hope that says, here's some financial support. There's a partnership there with the church and Mel Trotter. And on top of that, we're also giving you 8 to 10 people who are going to love you, be friends with you, support you, do networking, help you get established in whatever is transitioning in your life. The difference between the two is astonishing. I have over and over seen, sometimes this works for people and sometimes it doesn't. The success rate of a family experiencing long-term benefits and staying out of homelessness is significantly improved. It's a really big deal. Relationships, intentional community relationships, make a tremendous difference. Here are a few statistics about homelessness in the U.S. in Grand Rapids. These are national statistics. 150,000 children are, and I should say thanks to Adam for coordinating these statistics. This is work that he's doing with the Lilly Endowment for Mel Trotter. 150,000 children are homeless on a single night in the year. So like there's one day, I think it's in February, once a year they do a count of everybody who is experiencing homelessness so that they can kind of annually tally what that number looks like. At last count, on that night, 150,000 children in our country were experiencing homelessness. This is a 33% increase from the previous year. That is not okay. 2.5 million children will experience homelessness in the United States in 2025. That's a huge number. And then this bottom number is specific to Kent County, our county. Right now, there are 50 families waiting for emergency shelter in our county. 50 families waiting for emergency shelter. This is emergency shelter. This is not 50 families in our county staying at a mission somewhere and waiting to get into where they're going to go. This is 50 families who can't get into emergency shelter. There is no roof for them to have. They're staying in their cars. They're camping. That number is astonishing to me. That number, I met a family, I know I've shared this with you before, but it was about a year ago, last Christmas. I met a family who told me, yeah, we just got into the mission. I'm like, oh, great, I'm glad you got in. And they said, well, we've been on the waiting list for a year for emergency, not a program. And I said, what did you do? And they said, we slept in our car. And I said, with 3 little kids, 5 of you, 3 little kids? How'd you do that? And they kind of laughed and they said, well, we'd wake up with feet in our face. Or we'd camp. You these numbers aren't okay. And with Bridge of Hope, we're able to make a small dent in this, but in a very meaningful way. So we serve families one at a time with Bridge of Hope. It's slower than the blanket approach, but it's long-term effective. Our first family that we did was about 2 years ago. We had a mom and 3 kids, a family of 4. Our second family that we're working with right now is, we're almost close to wrapping up our time with them, but it's a family of 5, 2 adults and 3 children, and they're just delightful, and we just love them so much. And then we have a third family that we are jumping into doing, and I'll talk to you about that in just a second. That family's coming soon. You can see a few pictures of some things. These are all pictures that were shared with permission of any Bridge of Hope participants. It involves both Bridge of Hope participants and volunteers from our Bridge of Hope team. So these were families of the Bridge of Hope team that got together for a cookout this past summer. They did kickball. And then we have Kim, who is our leader of Bridge of Hope, and some of the Bridge of Hope family that we had at the time that came to Vacation Bible School, and you can see some of the fun things. You can go ahead and keep scrolling through those pictures. There's food, and everything's better with food, and Vacation Bible School and the Bridge of Hope families participating. This was our initial kickoff event of just welcoming our first family and getting to know people. So Mel Trotter connects us with the family, and then we were like, okay, let's get to know you. Let's do some things. Let's do life together. So what we're finding is this long-term support is just significantly improved. We have some really fun news. We were sharing some of these stories, specifically the one about the family that was waiting for a year for shelter, with somebody who is an outside supporter of City Life, just someone who's outside our church but who loves what we do and loves what we're about. And he heard about this work with this family, and he said, so you're telling me that the results of investing in a family like this for a year are yielding long-term results, and it's actually like leading to systemic change for the better? And we're like, yep, that's what's happening. And he said, well, can you do 4 more families? Can you take 4 more? I want to donate the money that's needed so that you can do this with 4 more families. And it took me a minute to just even comprehend what he was saying. And then I thought, Kim is not ready for us to do 4 more teams. Kim doesn't want to oversee 4 more teams right now. I think it's a little bit too much. We can maybe do a 3rd one. But we were kind of talking about that. But then it came to our attention that there have been some other churches in the Grand Rapids area who have been wanting to do the program and didn't have the church side of the funding necessary to do it. And so we are right now in the process of providing some sub-grants, like some mini grants, to 3 other churches. We're taking a 3rd family, and then there are 3 sub-grants that we are making available to some churches that we're talking to. And 4 more. What's 50 minus 4? This is why I told you I don't know math in front of you. Yeah, thanks, 46. Let's bring that number from 50 down to 46 in the next month or 2. This is a really big deal. Can we just say praise God for that gift that came in? We weren't even asking for that. We weren't even looking for that. We weren't looking to be a grantor that was going to do sub-grants, and yet God opened that door, and we're like, this is what we need to do. Like, we have to do something, and this is what God is giving City Life to do in this moment. So in our city that is plagued by a lack of affordable housing, we're making a dent. We can't solve the whole problem, but we can bring long-term change for family number 1, family number 2, family number 3, and the other 3 that are coming. And we can, with Bridge of Hope, do things like we can provide a meal once a week. We can provide community. We can provide a place where people know your name, where people understand who you are. A place that is dignity giving, where you can have a shower. A place where you can receive first aid triage. I ran into somebody at the shower ministry a couple months ago. He had a cut on his leg. Now, if I get a cut on my leg, I'm going to clean it out, and I'm going to put Neosporin and a Band-Aid on it, and it'll heal up over time. But he didn't have those resources. He'd been sleeping outside. And so by the time I saw him, I don't know anything about medical stuff, but I looked at that cut, and I'm like, you better get that looked at. That looks terrible. Sure enough, he went over to the person who was doing the first aid triage, and they hooked him all up. I think he ended up having to go to the hospital to get it cleaned out. And then I saw him about 2 weeks later, and he said, hey, look at my leg. And he lifted up his pant leg and showed me his cut, and it was healing. And something so simple in some circumstances is not simple when your circumstances are like what his were. And we're doing things like providing IDs and winter clothing and warm weather. We can provide meaningful ways of help that are fostering not just the feel-good kinds of stuff that makes us feel good about helping other people, but meaningful kinds of help that are leading toward long-term change. It's really exciting. And so 2 years ago, when we asked you to pray about how God wanted you to participate in Kingdom Foundations, we didn't know what we were asking you to do yet, but God did. 2 years ago, when we asked you to have faith that God was calling us to something deeper, we didn't know that was going to be, but God did. And he did it. He was willing. We said yes. And now people's lives are being changed. It's amazing. Let's look at Isaiah chapter 58, verses 6 through 12. You've been hearing this passage on some of the last few weeks. And I hope it's starting to settle into your soul in a deep way. Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice. Just loose some chains, imaginary chains. Loose some chains of injustice. And untie the cords of the yoke. To set the oppressed free and break every yoke. This is what God wants us to do. Loose those injustices that have people bound up. Untie the cords that have people tied up, the cords of injustice and oppression. Today we're talking about how to walk with our neighbors. How to walk with our neighbors. And point number 1 is this: get close enough to care. Get close enough. You cannot untie the cords that are around a person without actually getting in their space. You can't release them from the chains of injustice that are around them unless you're close enough to grab those chains and pull them off of their body. It's all about proximity. We have to get close enough to care. It is possible for us to care from a distance. We're caring from a distance for Mongolia, and we're sending money, we're sending care and attention that way. This is different. This is a different kind of ministry. To walk with our neighbors, we have to get in proximity. In the shower ministry, it looks like sitting at the table with people, hearing about their history. Like, what's your story? It's with Bridge of Hope, it's getting into the awkward personal space of families and talking with a family who's often embarrassed by the position that they're in. They don't want their kids to be going through this. They don't want this. Nobody wants what they're going through. It's not desired. But it means getting in some awkward spaces and close proximity. In both of these ministries, you have to move outside of your comfort zone. Kelsey Klumpstra Thomas says this. She was on our first Bridge of Hope team. She said, I felt moved, encouraged, and compelled by the fact that it's all about community and connections and helping one another out. We often stay in our socioeconomic circles. I'm going to read that line again. We often stay in our socioeconomic circles. But this is the very thing we can break out of to see change. Her point is that most of the time, we tend to interact with people who are from a similar socioeconomic level as us. People who have the same amount of, a similar amount of stuff, a similar amount of education, a similar kind of lifestyle. Whether it's a lot or a little, we tend to hang out with people who have a similar kind of socioeconomic status as ourselves. And Kelsey is saying we have to push past that comfort zone and cross that boundary. Move out of your comfort zone. And B, we have to recognize that relationships are wealth. Relationships are wealth. People become unhoused because for whatever reason, there are not relationships in place that can help keep them housed. Jackie, will you please come and join me? Jackie is a member of our current Bridge of Hope team and is going to be sharing about some of the things she's been learning about community.
Hello. So I've had the privilege of being a part of this current Bridge of Hope team. And what I've learned many things so far. But what I learned initially when we started was a lot of the statistics that Christy had up on the screen that I didn't know about. And that really moved me, realizing some of the stereotypes that I even had about homelessness and how a lot of those were broken, and just my understanding of how people end up in that situation. So it put me in a better headspace to move forward to befriend our family. But I think the thing that has really touched me the deepest is the sense of community that we've had within our group toward our family. So just a really practical example of this is in our family, one of the parents has been working in the fast food industry and had the opportunity to become a manager. And it was an awesome opportunity. She was super excited, and then found out that she had to go for a week of training in Battle Creek, Michigan. And they have one car that wasn't even that reliable. And so it became, she had to go on Monday, and if she didn't, she lost this opportunity. And I was thinking about what you were saying about the simple in some circumstances is hard for people. And I think what sometimes is even hard in our circumstances, like car troubles, is almost life altering in some of these families, from having an opportunity to not being able to get to Battle Creek, Michigan. And so I watched our group texting in about a 12-hour period to brainstorm how we were going to solve this for them. And we were able to do that, provide her a vehicle. And then on our way home from the first day, she hit a deer and totaled that car, and was not her fault. And I was like, are you kidding me? Now they have this crisis upon a crisis, and yet she still was striving for this opportunity to better her family. And so again, our community, we got together, we brainstormed, and then we were able to tap into even the bigger community of our church, and people who actually had a car to donate, had some money to offer to help with insurance. So I was just blown away that, you know, my little piece, I can contribute some things, but when we work together as a tribe for our family, we can really accomplish a lot. And I have that in my own life with family and friends, but realizing not everybody has that for different reasons and circumstances, but I can be that for someone else. And that's really what's ministered the most to me.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yes. If you have a lot of supportive relationships, you tend to take it for granted. But if you don't have them, it's a lifeline, and it can make all the difference in the world. Relationships are a form of wealth. The passage continues in verse 7 about what the Lord wants for us, about his will for us. He says, is it not to share your food with the hungry? Say, share your food. And to provide the poor wanderer with shelter. Say, provide the wanderer with shelter. When you see the naked, to clothe them. And not to turn away from your own flesh and blood. Funny thing is when you get close, when you're close enough to care, a lot of times it makes you naturally want to share. When you're finally close enough, you're like, oh, actually, I'll help. I could help with that. Audriana was a part of our first Bridge of Hope team, and she's now going to jump in our third one. And she has an audio testimony. She couldn't be here today, but she has an audio testimony of her experience in the first Bridge of Hope ministry that we did.
Hi, my name is Audriana Williams, and I was on the Bridge of Hope team, in which we were able to walk alongside of a family that was experiencing homelessness here in our community in Grand Rapids. It was an absolute joy to be able to live in community with this family as they celebrated birthdays and Christmases and new jobs and new cars and just all the things that good and bad that come in life. And yeah, it was an absolute joy to be able to walk alongside this family and live in community with them, and then with the other members of our team here at City Life on this team of Bridge of Hope.
there's an important word for us to know, and it's the word redistribution. Redistribution simply means taking one person's extra resources and giving them to another person who lacks those resources. So, for example, you heard about the car. We've had several car situations where there'll be someone at City Life who says, hey, I've got this broken down car. It's probably not going to last super long, but if someone would put a little money into it and fix it up, it could be available. And then we've been able to give that to someone who's needed it. But redistribution looks like if you've got some extra, sharing with someone who doesn't. It looks like taking some of the old things that you have and repurposing them. Last week we had our week on Mongolia, and we talked about being humbled by the apartment church that we had purchased with this church for them, and how it maybe wasn't as materially nice as what we might thought something new might be. The realities of post-Soviet era, and the realities of poverty. And we wrestled with this idea of simplicity and simplifying our lives and maybe doing with a little bit less than what we have. Well, today we're talking about a few different ways to contribute practically to a variety of things at City Life. I'm going to draw your attention to these in just a minute. Rather than include this in the announcements, I wanted to include it in the message today because I realized that we're coming up to Christmas. We're in this season of time when we're going to be asking for a lot of things, and I wanted to take a moment to talk about it. First of all, you've been hearing us make announcements the last couple weeks about this, what Kid City is doing, a Christmas swap and shop. Say swap and shop because it's kind of hard to say. Yeah. Yeah, so now I know it's like, okay, Christmas swap and shop. And the idea is that we take gently used toys, kids' clothing, kids' books, kids' household items like sheets or plates or cups or things like that, and bring them and then swap out those things for bikes, outdoor stuff, swap out those for other people's gently used things. And so it's the idea of we don't have to have all new stuff in order to provide for the needs that we have for our kids, in order for even kids to have fun. And so it's an encouragement to let's repurpose some of these things, let's share some of these things, let's redistribute some of these things. So we have that's coming in 2 weeks, 2 Saturdays from 2 weeks from now. And then we also have requests coming to you for the shower ministry. Now, you should have received this yellow form as you were coming in, donation items. Do you all have that? Hey, hospitality team, could you maybe help us out and go grab those and make sure that they get distributed to everybody? Justin's handing that. Maybe ushers, you can jump in and you can help Justin distribute those and make sure that everybody has one to look at, because that will be awesome. Thank you. Thanks for jumping up. Yes, and so we talk about the Kid City Christmas Swap and Shop, and then also the shower ministry is doing a drive through basically most of the winter months, where we're looking for adult hats, coats, boots, gloves, blankets, and hygiene items. All I know is that anytime we've done a clothing drive for our Monday shower outreach, it's always gone by the end of the day. So there is high demand and high need for some of these things. So those are things that are used things that we're asking you to donate. Clean out your closets. Clear out things that where do you stash stuff? Closets, garages, drawers, wherever you stash stuff, that's where we want you to look. Your attic, your basement. Look for things, and what can you give to help others? And then last week we also talked about some of the food pantry items in our partnership with Grace Church just over across the parking lot, and the food items that they're specifically requesting to build up their food pantry in this uncertain time with SNAP benefits. And so that we don't want used. That we don't want gently used food items. We'd like them to be new and unopened. And then finally, we're doing our annual outreach parties that are connected to Mel Trotter Ministries. And we don't have all those requests today, but we're probably going to have them next week for you. And we're going to be asking you for some things there as well that we can use for gifts and food and that sort of thing. And so I'm looking at this as a pastor saying, boy, we're asking the church for a lot of things. We're not all going to be able to give to all things, and that is okay. But I wanted to put the variety of options out there because some of these are things that you already have already, and it actually helps you to get rid of them in a productive way, so it could be a blessing to you that way. But also because I'm just putting it out there, because sometimes God moves people's hearts to be part of things in a certain way, and I wanted to put out the options, and you work with God, you work with what you've got, and participate as you would like to. But I wanted you to know all the options and all the possibilities of ways that you can jump in. Because when you're close enough to care, you naturally want to share. Today's passage continues. If you do away with the yoke of oppression and with the pointing finger and malicious talk. Can you give me a pointing finger and malicious talk? If you do away with these things, and it goes on to say, and if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry, then this is what makes God happy. God says, do away with the yoke of oppression. Quit giving that pointing finger, blaming everybody for everything. Quit your malicious talk, all the bad things you're saying about everybody. Stop pointing fingers. Stop. We love to point fingers. People love to do malicious talk about marginalized people groups. Well, they should just get a job. They should just act better. They should dress better. With the immigrant and refugee thing, they should go back to where they came from. They shouldn't have broken the law. They shouldn't do this. They shouldn't do that. And all pointing fingers and malicious talk. And he says, you don't put yourself in the accusing position. Not your job. The Bible tells us, not your job. He says, do away with the pointing finger. Do away with the malicious talk. How to walk with our neighbors? Point number 2 is we give dignity to one another. We give dignity. At City Life, we focus on doing ministry with people, not ministry to people or ministry at people. I'm going to throw this ministry at you. Bam, you're hit with this ministry that I'm going to do to make myself feel better. Nope, we do ministry with people. That means we partner together. There's learning, there's growing, there's talking, there's understanding, there's proximity. We give dignity to one another. I like the way that the shower ministry is a basic dignity. It's for people who want to get clean, so they can get clean. I'm glad for that. I love it that we serve nice food. In fact, show some of those pictures of the food that we have. We get all of our bread donated from Field and Fire at the downtown market, which is like this elite artisan bakery. It's like where the rich people buy their bread. And we get the leftovers, and it's wonderful. It's delicious, and it's beautiful. And we get to serve high-end pastries and breads and have our French toast made out of the special homemade artisan bread that we serve to our guests for the shower outreach. I love that. I love that. It's the same reason why we bring the best that we can to our quarterly chapels that we do at Mel Trotter's, because we think that everybody deserves the best that we have to give. It's the same reason why we keep our church bathrooms open to the public during the week, is because we know that it's a matter of human dignity to have a place to use the restroom. And you know what? It causes more work for our custodial team. It causes more work for our facilities team. And yet we do it because it's a matter of dignity. We give dignity to one another. How else do we walk with our neighbors? The passage continues in verse 10. And if you spend yourselves, say spend yourselves. If you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. I like that phrase, spend yourself. If you spend yourself, because it makes me think of the cost that is involved in walking with our neighbors, because there is a cost. Not just a financial cost, an emotional cost, a mental cost, a cost on time. I can't remember if Jackie just said in her testimony just now or if it was in the other service, but she said, you know, there have been times when it was a Friday and she had a day off of work on Friday. It was her day off, and she gets a text from the Bridge of Hope team about a need that arose from the family, and she's like, oh, not today, it's my day off. And she's like, nope, but I got to do it. I made a commitment, and then she engages. But there is a cost to this sort of thing. And when we walk with our neighbors, we have to, number 3, accept that you have limits. Accept that you can't do it all, and you certainly can't do it all yourself. It is this very reason why so many people do inner-city short-term mission trips. Because you get to do it for a short period of time, and then you get to be done and go home. Now, some people pay thousands of dollars. No, some people pay hundreds of dollars. Let's be realistic. Hundreds of dollars to come and come to church like City Life No one's paying us. I'm butchering this. No one's paying us to do this, but some people pay hundreds of dollars to go and do a short-term mission trip to do the kinds of stuff that we just get to do every day as a normal part of how we do life. We live a short-term mission trip, except it's a long-term mission trip here at City Life, because we're living in missional community together. And when we live this way, you can't just do your thing and then go home and not have to worry about it anymore and feel good about what you did to help your brother or sister who is less fortunate than you. You have to figure out, how do we do this every day? How do we do this long term? How do I last at this church if this is what relationship looks like sometimes? See, walking with your neighbor means you have to recognize that you do have limits. Emotionally, the emotional load, the personal load, financial load. And it means when we walk with our neighbors that we feel the same problems they feel. We face the same problems they face. And the needs can be absolutely overwhelming. I feel overwhelmed with the number of unhoused families in our county. I feel overwhelmed with the number of unhoused people in this church. We can't fix it all. It is impossible for us to do everything. We'll never be able to do everything that we would like to do. But sustainability matters. What can we do, and what can we do for a long period of time? What can we sustain over a period of time? We can do what we can do. And the part that we can do absolutely matters. One of City Life's core practices is team-based ministry. Because we're not interested in people just going off and doing their own little do-good thing over here and there. We're saying, no, everything works better when we do things as a team. Everything is stronger and more sustainable when there's a team. The Bridge of Hope example was a perfect example of that. If Jackie were the only one responsible, or if Kim, or the leader of Bridge of Hope, were the only one responsible for dealing with that family's needs, they would soon quit because it'd be too hard. But instead, there's 6 people, 8 people, 10 people, and they get together, and they text. They're like, well, what about this? What about that? Well, I've got this person over here. I've got this idea over there. I might have a contact. Let me call them and see what I've got. And all of a sudden, things that were impossible become possible because there is a group effort toward it. We do team-based ministry. This is why Jesus says, I want a church. I'm going to build my church. You together are my body, Jesus says. We don't only need a hand to do all the good works. It's like we need a hand and a foot and a mouth and a head. And we need all of you to join in together and be the body of Jesus on earth. The scripture continues in verse 12. This should sound familiar by now. Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins and will raise up the age-old foundations. You will be called repairer of broken walls, restorer of streets with dwellings. This work is work that is done in community. It says your people will rebuild. It says plural. It doesn't say one hero is going to rise and save the day. It says together, your people together. We're in this together. No one person is fixing the homelessness problem. Together, we're partnering with each other, with the church, with organizations like Mel Trotter and other organizations, with the people themselves. Together, we're rebuilding, repairing, restoring, raising up. Mike, you can come on up anytime. Here's why these ministries matter. Bridge of Hope matters because it is leading to significantly better outcomes long term. The slower, deeper, invested relationship is leading to better outcomes. Outcomes we see for the shower. We have seen people go from no housing to housing. We've seen people who want recovery, who haven't found a good fit, find a recovery program that is a good fit. We've seen people who haven't fit the usual mental health support pathways get the specific and personalized and unique help that they need at the shower ministry to help them take the next step toward becoming housed. Often, if someone needs housing, it's because they also need some sort of help with this problem, and then in order to get help with that problem, you have to get help with the other problem that came before it, and in order to get help with that problem, you have to get help. And so you have other things you've got to line up before you can even get to the housing step. And the shower ministry has been this place of dig into some of that complexity. So what's God's role in all this? I'm really interested, church, in us not just being a church that does justice and a church that does good works. I want us to be that. But if that becomes your religion, you're missing the point. We can never elevate justice over Jesus. We can never elevate the good works over who the person of Jesus is and him being our salvation. We are seeing spiritual awakening in both areas of these ministries. We are seeing in the shower ministry, on Sundays, we have a lot of people come to us and say, I've got this need. And then we'll say, you know what, can you come back on Monday? Because we've got more time and more people. We've got staff and volunteers and people, more resources around to kind of dig into your story and figure out how we can help you. And then what that's leading to then is, oh, and by the way, now on Tuesday, there's a Bible study for people who kind of just want to go deeper. And so now on Tuesdays, we've got folks that have been kind of from everywhere, but kind of started with the shower ministry, who are digging deeper in the Word. They're meeting with Stacy and Pastor Phil and digging deeper into the Word. What does the Bible say about who I'm supposed to be as a human? It's beautiful. And Bridge of Hope, the Bridge of Hope team, they're living by faith, people. The Bridge of Hope team's living by faith. They don't know how to fix all the problems that are coming their way. When they go through their training, they can't be told, well, you're going to face X, Y, Z. You're going to have these 3 problems, so become experts in this. You're going to figure out these things out. They don't know what the problems are going to be. You don't know that until you're like 3 or 4 months in. And so they're living by faith, and they're praying, and they have a need, and they scramble, and they're creative, and they figure it out. And then the need gets worse, and then there's a deer that gets hit, and then there's more. And so then they pray, and then God is answering these prayers. Their own faith, they are the ones who are getting blessed on top of the family. Kim was writing her results, or her message on here, and she said, there have been multiple times where we have had no idea how we're going to meet the family's need. But then suddenly, something happens out of the blue, like somebody says, hey, does anybody need a car? Hey, does anybody need help with this event, with this thing? And Kim said, when it came time to start a second team, she found out about this donor that came and said, hey, we want you to do this other additional ministry. And so I came to Kim. I'm like, okay, Kim, we're gonna do another team. We're gonna do family number 3. And she looked at me with big eyes, and she was like, I don't know how we can do that. She's like, we've already done 2. I think we've used up all the people in the church who want to do this work. I don't know if there's anybody else. And Kim said, when I didn't know where this other team was going to come from, with faith and prayer, not only did God provide another team, but an eager team, a capable team, and a full 10-person team. And they're getting ready to do their training. I think they started last Thursday. They're doing week number 2 this Thursday. And this group of 10 people, they're ready to go. And we're going to be matched with our 3rd family anytime now. It's amazing what God is doing. And so we do these things, church. We do these things. We walk with our neighbors, because walking with neighbors is exactly how Jesus came and walked with us. When we talk about leaving your socioeconomic sphere and going out of your comfort zone to people who are very unlike you, think about what Jesus left. Think about Jesus' socioeconomic sphere in the heavens and how he left that to come to earth. We're just doing what Jesus did, missionally taking ourselves out of where we've been and going to where his beloved people are and saying, I think I know somebody who has some hope for you. And there's this thing called the church, the body of believers in Jesus, who are going to come together, and we're going to figure this out together. We're going to do life together. Jesus came to the hardest place. Jesus came to the most despairing and hopeless people. And he said, take heart. Jesus went to the people that human power could not fix, and he said, there's divine power here for you. And in Isaiah 58, you know what the Bible says about those who participate in this kind of work? For those of you volunteers who already stood up, and for those of you who are participating in these things in so many other ways, this is what the Bible says about you in Isaiah 58:8. Then your light will break forth like the dawn. Your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. That's the Lord saying, you are blessed for doing my work. You are blessed for being my hands and feet. And so we're asking you to join in however. If you want to join the shower ministry team, Pastor Phil would love to talk to you about that. You can bring your office, bring your coworkers and do a serve day. We've had homeschool kids come and do things. We had teens from the church come and do things during the summer. We have people come regularly. We have people come once in a while. Talk to Pastor Phil. He'd love to talk with you. Our current Bridge of Hope team is already filled. We put that announcement out there, and you stood up and raised up, and we're good on that. But if you have some possibilities of networking, or, hey, call on me if you run into a problem, or if there's a special project, let me know. Kim had knee surgery, and so she's actually not here. She had to head out. But you could also talk with Adam, if you could just raise your hand, Adam, who oversees the Bridge of Hope program at Mel Trotter. And we'll just collect your names, and we'll keep you in the loop about things and about future teams that will be starting up. You've also been invited to participate in the Kingdom Foundation's giving. We have 8 more weeks left, and if you're like, all right, I haven't jumped in yet, and I'm ready to do that, today would be a great day to fill out that card, and you can either drop it in the little church on the welcome table or up here on the carpeted area in front of the keyboard. But that's a very practical way to jump in as well. Maybe it looks like taking that yellow form of all the different ways to all the different things we're looking for, gently used and new, and saying, all right, I'm going to dig in. I'm going to clean out a closet, and it's going to bless me and them. Lots of ways to jump in. The reality, church, is that God is already at work. God is already at work in our neighborhood. We are not the saviors. We're not bringing anything new. All we're doing is partnering with the beautiful things that God has already started. Jumping in with a God who already loves that family. Jumping in with a God who already loves that person that everybody else in society has forgotten about. We're just jumping in with what God's already doing and say, all right, Jesus, I'm your hands, I'm your feet. I'm here to do your work. He's inviting you to join him. Would you stand where you are, please?